All right, so good morning, everyone, and welcome to a special council meeting for the Village of Lytton on July 10th. Before we begin, I want to remind everyone to please turn off your videos, mute your microphones, and allow council to begin the proceedings. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and broadcasted on the Village of Lytton YouTube channel. If you wish to view this meeting or access a Village recording of a past meeting, you can visit Village YouTube channel and watch it there. Thank you, Your Worship. You may call the meeting to order.
Good morning, everyone. I call this special council meeting to order at 9 a.m. To begin, I'd like to acknowledge that we're meeting on the traditional, unceded ancestral territory of the Entlecaton people. We will begin with adoption of the agenda for today as presented. Councillor Lightfoot, seconded by Councillor McCann. All those in favor? Carried. All right, next we have public comment regarding this agenda, and I'm going to turn it back over to Corporate Officer Storoshenko.
Thank you, Your Worship. So we now invite members of the public to provide comments on items related to today's agenda. If you'd like to speak, please use the raise hand function on Zoom. You can find that by clicking on React at the bottom of your screen and select Raise Hand. When it's your turn, I'll read your name and ask you to unmute yourself. You'll have 2 minutes to speak. Speakers are asked to please state and spell your name, provide your address, and indicate the agenda item number that you're speaking to. So if anyone would like to speak, please use the raise hand function now. I'll call for a second time. If anyone wishes to speak, please use the raise hand function now. And Your Worship, there's nobody online. So is there anyone there at Parish Hall that wishes to speak?
Yes, I don't believe there's anybody here interested in speaking today.
All right, so that concludes the public comment portion of the meeting. Back to you, Your Worship.
All right, so we are holding this special meeting for one item, and I'm going to be turning it over to CAO Mongercat.
Thank you very much, Mayor O'Connor. Excuse me. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Good morning, and really appreciate council being able to attend this meeting on such short notice, because we are, as you know, trying to push really hard to keep this community hub project moving ahead, and felt we had a something we wanted to review with you to get your thoughts on and approval on, so that we can keep moving forward. So a couple of weeks ago, we had a council workshop where we reviewed some options for reducing the overall capital cost of constructing the facility. In that meeting, we kind of focused on two different things. We focused on reducing the cost. We also focused on simplifying the building itself and just making it sort of a clean, simple structure. And so we have with us today our colleagues from O4. We have Marta, Natalie, and Mike on the line. And they've been working with their team, taking back some of that feedback from council and incorporating it. And what we wanted to do today is to share with council a revised layout, sort of a footprint of the building, which incorporates really some of those larger cost items that we talked about: removal of balconies, reduction in the overall size, reduction in the size of the canopy, those elements. We're still working through some of the other items that we talked about, like materials for cladding and roofing and soffits and those types of things. So we're not here today to discuss a final cost for the building or cost savings. We really are looking for council's approval of the direction that this new layout is going. And so then O4 can work with their consulting team on all of the insides of the building, that kind of need to be planned out to go with this. So I just want to make it clear right off the bat, we're not going to be talking about the total cost savings today. That will come at another time, as will a final schematic, final 60% design building. This is to get your approval on the direction that we're headed. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. So looking for to approve the layout, so then the work can progress.
Yeah.
So from here, we
turn it over to Natalie. Natalie's going to run it, I think.
Natalie, there she is. Yes. Welcome, Natalie.
Thank you, everyone. And thanks, Diane, for the introduction. That's perfect. That's exactly what we're trying to do here. I think that sets us up well. I'll just share my screen. Okay, let me know when you can see the PDF here. You see design revisions?
Yes.
Okay, great. Is anything blocking? I've got some sort of Zoom pop-ups here. Can you guys see pretty clearly?
Yeah.
Oh, great. So as Diane mentioned, today we're really going to focus on, it's about 4 big moves that came out of the revisions that were requested after our previous workshop. And those are reducing the overall footprint of the building. So we'd showed previously kind of tightening it up from the east and west side to kind of shrink that east-west dimension. So that's something we've implemented. The other one was removing the balconies, which ties into that overall footprint reduction. And then deleting the basement was one that came up as well. So that has a number of knock-on effects to the planning. So that's something we're working to resolve here and have a proposal for you. And then the fourth one was reducing the canopy size, which does have quite an impact because it opens up a large portion of that plaza area out front. And so you can see we've incorporated that into the planning in a slightly different way. So I will jump in and I'll run through the plans and then maybe open it up for any questions or clarifications about the floor plans. And then we have some 3D images that we've put together to help you visualize overall the massing direction, what this might look like. It's just easier to see in 3D. So then I'll walk through those. And then we can open it up for general comments and conversation after that. So starting with the floor plan here, as you can see, we still have this orange shaded area on the west side, which indicates the overall floor plan reduction. So the west edge of the building used to be at this furthest line here, the west edge of that orange block. It's now been pulled back to the closer line there by 4 meters. So that does have a significant impact on the overall area of the building and therefore some savings. That does reduce the canopies or the balconies on the second level. This is something that generally we've tightened up a bunch of the floor areas of these different usable spaces within the building in order to accommodate that reduction. And then in combination with removing the basement, I think the biggest thing here was we were shuffling pieces around trying to figure out how to fit them all into this fixed size that we're trying to achieve for the costing purposes. And
Excuse me.
yeah, go
Sorry,
ahead.
Natalie, can you expand it at all?
Yes, certainly.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks. Um, So, yeah, the biggest impact of that is essentially that once we pulled out the basement area as well, we had a couple of spaces that weren't fitting well into the revised floor plan. And that was specifically the plaza storage and the electrical room, because we're trying to bring all those service spaces, the mechanical room, the electrical room, and the storage spaces that were in the basement previously up to the ground floor. And so then that starts to eat into the usable floor area for the library, the museum, the community gathering space, that sort of thing. So to avoid having too much of an impact there, the main planning change that you're going to see here is what we're showing. It's a small service building. Sorry, sorry about that. I don't know what's happening there. A small service building in the plaza area, which has now been opened up by reducing the canopy size. And this building would include the plaza storage, the main electrical room, and then we also would be capturing the PMT as the pad-mounted transformer. So that's a large electrical item that needs to be on site. So we could include that and conceal it within this structure, as well as a enclosure for the garbage and waste, which is something that we hadn't previously addressed in our planning. And the reason this little service building is quite important is because the only other way to accommodate the plaza storage and the electrical room, which were required functions within the building while still meeting the reduced floor area, was to significantly reduce the size of the museum and the museum storage. Because the other areas, the cultural room, the library, the kitchen, the gathering space, were already at pretty much the minimum areas that you had requested. We have noted areas on there. I think you all have a printout copy in front of you. So As you look through, you'll see, the area is actually noted on those spaces in the blue. That's showing what the proposed revised area for each of these spaces is. So since we're quite close to the minimum on a lot of these, we didn't want to reduce. The only area we could really take out would have been the museum, and we didn't want to reduce that further. So that's why we've proposed actually removing some of those spaces from the building. A really significant advantage of doing this is that the way we've shown it, since this would be a separate small service structure, it does not need to be insulated or conditioned to the same degree as the rest of the building. So it would be a much simpler, more economical construction than trying to fit those into the footprint of the overall building and say expanding that footprint again to accommodate these. So here we're trying to find a cost-effective way to take some of these service spaces that don't require the same degree of finishing and conditioning in the building and move them essentially outside into a more affordable structure. And this is taking them out of the basement or the main portion of the hub. So that's the biggest planning change. I think I'll just zoom in here so I can kind of walk you through the changes. Well, the community living room has not changed particularly. It has shifted over slightly, so it's more centered on the floor plan than it was previously. And that was to allow us to have the museum and cultural room in kind of their original location with that relationship between the two of them, the cultural room on the west, potentially some doors in between, which could be covered part of the time if that's not in use, but that there's the opportunity to open up those spaces to each other and have a connection between the two. The museum is just over 1,000 square feet here and does have some of the requested support spaces. So we've shown a 400 square foot storage space behind it on the south side, as well as an office with a small washroom. Location of these is not final. They could be shifted around, but this was just an initial proposal. There's an opportunity with where the museum storage is located to have an exterior access door, which is something we'd heard might be useful. And then this also leaves us space for the mechanical and water entry room, as well as some additional electrical space that may be needed inside in this southwest corner of the building, which is an important location just based on the distribution of those services and the fact that we've allowed for a spot for our main mechanical units that need to be on the exterior of the building on the southwest corner. So strategically, it makes sense to have all of our kind of mechanical services grouped into this southwest portion. That just simplifies the mechanical design. So that deals with the south side of the community living room. And then if we move over to the north side, we've got the library on the west again, and that is, we've shown 460 square feet here. However, note that the areas exclude storage space. So there is potential to reduce the size of these storage areas we've shown, and that would expand the area a little bit of the library. We like the west location just with the views down to out to the mountains, and we'd also heard that council generally liked the idea of pushing that a little deeper into the building. The washrooms have been revised. The count is reduced slightly because of the floor area reduction. So those are just to the north of the library. We've got opposite the sort of central hall here, we've got the multi-purpose room. We had a request for a small meeting room, so we provided something a little bit bigger than that, just with the space that was available. So this could act as both a multi-purpose room or a meeting room, depending on the functions. More storage could be added here or less, depending on the desired size of that, but this does add a little bit more flexibility to have some more space there. And that's located right off the community living room, as well. We do have 2 accessible washrooms, which didn't fit in the main washroom block here. And we also thought it was sort of convenient to have them right off of the community living room, a little bit closer to the museum. So there's 2 larger accessible washrooms off the hall here, as well as a janitor's closet. And then adjacent to that is the kitchen, which has only reduced in size a little bit from the previous option. We thought we'd have to shrink it down more, but hearing some of the comments and just with the way the planning worked out, we were able to keep the size pretty close to what it was. So that's about 400 square feet. There's a possibility if we wanted the kitchen a bit smaller that the multi-purpose room could get a little bit bigger, but we thought this was a pretty good balance. And then the community gathering space is, we heard the desired size was between 2,000 and 2,500 square feet. In order to fit all of the other spaces, this is about the maximum size we can achieve, is just over that 2,000 square feet. And again, that's exclusive of, we found some storage space that's available under the stair coming down from the second floor. There'd be sort of a fairly high and decent sized storage space there. And there's some other places we can find storage out of this as well. We are still showing these dashed lines for potential movable partitions. We understand there's some sort of operational concerns with that, but as we noted before, depending on the quality that you get, they can work very well. And this is mostly to address the comments we've heard about future proofing. This is something that allows you to kind of divide that room up and add multi-purpose rooms in the future if needed. So whether those are included now or something that were to get added, we think that this is, given how compact the floor plan is and the areas that we're working with, this is probably one of the most effective ways to provide some flexibility in the future if you do need more of those smaller multi-purpose spaces. And other than that, the dash lines here indicate the double height, so we've managed to preserve that. The arrow here shows where the overhead door would be coming off of the plaza. You can see the revised area of the canopy, which has shrunk quite a bit from the previous version. So it's now only taking up about 35% of the plaza space. So we now have an uncovered plaza area of about 2,200 square feet and a covered plaza area of 2,200 square feet. The dimensions are slightly different than the ones we had received in the request, just because we felt that the having a slightly shorter and wider canopy gives you a little bit more flexibility to the, the size of a stage that goes underneath or the kinds of activities. You could have 2 rows of market stalls, things like that, whereas having a narrower space is a little bit limiting in terms of some of those functions. So that we would recommend going with a slightly wider and shorter dimension, which is what we've shown here. And I think that's it. We've preserved the drive aisle on the south side here, which is needed to access the residences. So the suites now with this service building have a little bit more of a private entry. It's not right off the hub, and we do have this building sort of creating a buffer in between the 2 entrances to the building. This storage or service building also provides that windbreak for a substantial portion of the plaza, which is helpful. So rather than having to construct a separate wall for that, we can use this building wall to help shelter the rest of the plaza space. And that is, I think, it for the ground floor. Maybe the only other thing is you'll see here we do have that covered patio space is preserved. So we do have a nice space to sit and look out at the west side of the site and the views that way. And that is it for the ground floor. Are there any initial questions about the planning here to address before we run through the second floor?
Sure, let's go through some questions
Yeah.
and comments with this before we move upstairs. Councillor McCann.
Sure. Can you tell us the ceiling height of the main floor without, not the double? Oops, sorry.
Without the double height?
Yeah, how high are the ceilings in the
They're
main floor?
about 12 to 14 feet. It depends. Some places we're proposing dropping a drywall ceiling to hide services, ductwork, that sort of thing. And in other areas, the ceiling would be exposed. So about 12 feet on the lower side and 14 on the higher side.
Okay, thanks. That gives us a sense of how, so even if it's a smaller room, it'll seem bigger.
That's true. Some places like the washrooms, we'd probably bring it down lower. It would feel a little strange to be in a 14-foot toilet
Yeah.
stall. So we'll modulate those depending on what makes sense for the room. But yes, they're decent height ceilings.
Okay, Councillor Lightfoot.
I generally like the layout, but
I'm drawing a blank when it comes to what that service, main electrical room and plaza storage would look like from the street, like
Yeah, I think you'll be
some
able to see that
character, I
in
guess.
the
Yeah.
3D views. We'll show you those in the next couple slides once we get into those three sort of 3D views. I think
Okay,
that'll
thank
help
you.
Tessa.
Yeah. Good. Councillor Michelle, do you have any comments at this time?
Not right now, no.
Yeah, I wouldn't. And I apologize, but I didn't mention that it doesn't look like Councillor Toss was able to join us today. Councillor McCann.
I totally understand the shift of the canopy, and it makes perfect sense. But I do wonder about the middle door, and that's the main access. And in the wintertime, and if you have a roof over that entry, you're not having to shovel snow in front of that entry. So I understand, but I wish there was some way there could be shelter over the doors so that you can have a little easier access in inclement weather. That's all. I don't know how that would look, but that would be a concern I'd have just from a practical perspective.
Yeah, that's a great comment. And we actually have provided an option to address that. That's not shown very well in this plan, but you'll see it in the 3D views and you can let us know if that's sort of sufficient. But we have provided a canopy that runs across the front there, just connecting these spaces.
Yeah, thanks.
Are there any other comments at this time? Yeah, generally, I really like this plan. So maybe what we'll do is move on to the upstairs, and then maybe more things will crop up for people.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks everyone for the comments. The upstairs is simpler, so we won't spend as much time on this, but the main takeaways being, as you can see, that same portion of footprint has been reduced on the second level, partly achieved by removing the balconies. We have shown these little bump outs because we are still providing those Juliet balconies that were requested. So that's, as we said, it's about a 2-foot kind of walkout, and you'll see that in the 3D views a little bit better. The other features here are just that we've kept the stair on the south side generally in the same place with the elevator. So you come up in the same location as before. There's some mechanical service space behind that that's needed to get the services from the ground floor up. And then across from the entry on the south side, you would see a storage room that we've added, because that is one of the things that was in the basement level that unfortunately we just couldn't fit into the hub level once we removed the basement. So we have brought that up to the second floor, closer to the suites. And what we've done to accommodate that is we've reduced the suite count by 1. And then instead of having 2 1-bedrooms in this corner, in this southeast corner, we have a larger 2-bedroom and then the storage space. And the storage space there is showing sort of storage lockers or units, I guess that would be about 3 feet by 6 feet by 3 feet high, and then you have them stacked two tiers. So that's why we've got the count as it is here. And so then we have that one L-shaped 2-bedroom just behind it. We've got the areas for each suite noted. And in total here, we're showing 10 suites, and 2 of them are 2-bedroom, 1 slightly smaller, and then 1 larger one up on the northwest corner. The other change in this plan, you'll see along the hallway here, this is actually a code requirement, but we do have the corridor sort of bumps out in a few locations here, and this is to provide kind of a turnaround space. If somebody were navigating this in a wheelchair, you need a wider space every certain number of meters to allow someone to turn around and get situated. So we have 1 at the main entry on the south, 1 here where there's this sort of outlook down into the community living room below, and then 1 at the far end here that looks down into the community gathering space as well. And the stair on the north side has been revised from the original version, which you can kind of see underlaid here. It used to be a straight stair all the way down, and this is now a wrapping stair, and that's just to make sure that the stairwells structurally align on both sides of the building. And so that's where we have that second 2-bedroom here.
Mhm.
The other ones, the other suites are all the same size. They're just shy of 600 square feet, and those are all 1 bedroom. So currently not showing any studios, just 1 bedrooms, and then the 2-bedroom units.
Mhm.
Okay.
Any comments on the second floor layout?
Councillor Lightfoot.
I just know that earlier in the process, we decided that one of those units would be designated as a handicap.
Yeah,
And so I understand this is just a rough drawing, but
Yeah.
is that still the intent?
that is still the intent.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Other comments and thoughts? Councillor McCann.
I'm looking forward to the 3D thing because I'll probably answer my question. But the two double height spaces, it says bay window feature. So it sounds like it may not be just all open, that it's closed in with glass. Like I'm curious about how that will actually look.
Yeah, so these are almost like a little portal window from the second floor. They're not open to below. It's not a mezzanine. This is an actual window from the second floor hallway looking down into the space below. This is partly to get light in there because we have these really nice big windows over those double height spaces, which you'd be able to see out of from these sort of portal windows on the second floor hallway. So that's a nice way to bring some natural light into that corridor. And then also, as we commented, we needed these expanded spaces for accessibility. So we imagine these could have, a little bench there or something like that if someone's spending time in the hallway. But it is fully closed off and sealed from the floor below. There does have to be a fire separation there. So these would be, fire rated windows and things like that.
Oh, yeah.
Cool. Thank you, Councillor Michelle.
No questions right now.
Okay.
Thanks.
Well, this whole both floors are looking a lot closer to what I think we had discussed at our meeting. And I don't have any concerns, anything that's jumping out at me to say, no way, stop, redo it. So yeah. Anybody else? Any other comments, thoughts? Councillor Lightfoot.
I just have to say I'm relieved that the gathering space is as big as it is because I was somewhat concerned that it would be so small that it wouldn't fit our needs.
Right.
And with the plaza in front or whatever, and the walkway, the community living room going up to it, it gives expanded space for functions. So.
And
you'll-
someone remind me the community space, the seating for that, what that might be?
The gathering space?
Yeah, community gathering space, yeah.
Like how many, what's the capacity?
I mean, the capacity is 250 people, which is what was requested. So that's just based on floor area. We do a calculation for like non-fixed seating, and that tells us how many people you can have in that space, assuming you're using movable seating and tables. So that's 250. The only fixed seating we were proposing, and of course we'll get into this in detail once we start designing the interior more, but was to potentially have some benching along this north wall. And that was because if you had some built-in seating there, then that would provide, somewhere that people could come and sit. It's at the end of the stair here where the wall bumps out anyways. And we imagine sort of from what we've been seeing in this space so far, that if you were to host a presentation type event, that you would likely orient an event sort of to the south side here along this south wall, because this is your biggest continuous uninterrupted wall, where you're not going to have backlighting because the windows aren't right behind the person speaking, which would be a challenge on the west side or on the north here where we've got windows. And then because of where the overhead door is, you likely wouldn't be standing right in front of where the overhead door is. So we kind of imagined in an event scenario, if somebody was speaking or presenting or putting on some kind of performance, that they would likely use this west wall or south wall, sorry, as a backdrop, and that therefore having fixed seating on the north side might be practical and nice to just have somewhere to sit even when the space isn't set up for events.
Mhm.
That's,
And
was
storage.
was that there
Storage.
before? Because that's a really good idea. Yeah.
Yeah, we'd indicated that, but not something we got into in detail. Like I said, once we get to interiors, we'll present views of all of that stuff so you guys can really see it better and understand what that would look like.
Yeah. Let's look at the massing. I think you'll. Sure. I think.
Yeah, let's move on then.
Sure.
Thank you.
That
Okay, great. So here's some 3D views of what that would look like. Just to situate you, we're on the north side of the building, looking to kind of the southwest there. We've got the west slope at the top right side of the page here. You can ignore this box, but that is intended to be the building down by the train track.
Oh,
Okay. Much bigger there than it actually is. And then here you can see the scale of the revised canopy pulled back. I think it shows a little better in the 3D here. We've got this service building that we mentioned, which would be very much in the same kind of form and massing as the main hub. All three structures now have the same sort of simplified gable roof line with the same slope. We imagine they would all be, metal roofs and generally match. The cladding, as Diane said, we haven't finalized materials or anything, and we are incorporating your comments, but we're assuming that it will be some kind of mid-tone panelized something. So this is not prescriptive in any way, but we're just showing this for general massing purposes. So we did want to indicate though that the buildings generally, the structures, we'd like to unify them all with the materials so that it does look like it's all this connected complex. And then you can see how the service building kind of frames this new outdoor plaza portion that we have. And then I think it was Councillor McCann's point about having some coverage at the entry. So here we have provided a continuous, simple flat canopy that runs all the way along the face of the hub, between the hub and the service building and the larger plaza canopy. That same structure would match the construction of the canopy we had previously talked about connecting to the pool building. And that would just provide shade and shade for someone walking along the face of the building, as well as protection from the rain. And we've kept that just a flat roof, so it's not kind of visually competing with the other structures on site. That would be something that'd be very simple construction. Other than that, you're starting to get a glimpse of the balconies being removed and having these smaller Juliet walkout balconies with some screens and shading elements. You'll see that a bit better in the coming views. Here's another one from the other direction. So if you're somewhat to the south, looking to the northwest, again, you can see where that entry is being covered. We've reduced the windows on the south side of the building, generally just tidying that up. And now we've added these shading screens sort of at most of the windows that'll require some kind of shade. We've been running sun studies and figuring out how deep those need to be in the best location for them to make sure that you're keeping the sun off those windows at the hottest time of day. And then here, this view, you can also see a little bit the south side of that service building, which would have the garbage enclosure. And then, as I mentioned, this large electrical box that Hydro would need to access every so often. Moving through, here's another one of the entries, gives you a little bit better sense of scale with this service building providing that windbreak and possibly a backdrop if any events were to happen kind of in the center of the plaza in the open space. You can see that coverage to walk across the front of the building. The museum still has good presence there. Whether or not there's a window there, this could be some kind of display for the museum or just signage. I hadn't mentioned before, but that dormer that we had before has now been removed, the one above the community living room. So now this is just the straight roof running across, and the window size has been reduced somewhat. You can actually faintly see in the back of this window that portal window from the second floor. So you can see there is that connection between the two from the corridor of the second floor. And then there's those Juliet balconies again. and a little sort of peek of the revised canopy structure, which in this case is much simpler than it was before with the repeating roof lines. Should be some kind of truss system in there to support that, and just simplified columns. Another view looking mostly at the service building. Here we'd be imagining at this point some large metal, perhaps perforated doors that can get you airflow into the waste enclosure and that electrical space, but easy enough to access those when needed. And there is a little bit of a extension of a canopy on that side, just so that if someone were to be taking out the trash or recycling, you have a little bit of coverage from the elements as you walk out under that building. The entry to the suites hasn't changed much. As we noted, there could be potentially access into the museum storage from this location if that's desired. And then here's another closer view from the north. I think the main thing here, just piled a bunch of people in here, but it helps you get a little bit of a sense of the scale of the canopy and what that could look like. We did imagine, potentially if you put a stage under here or something, you can see we've got enough width that there's a fair bit of flexibility in what sorts of activities could take place under there. And then focusing in on the west side a little bit, here's that cutaway patio that we mentioned. So where you've got some shade from the second level above, which would provide a nice seating space. That's also where the community gathering space kind of comes out to the west side and would have some views and access. And so there's a nice shaded area for people to sit. And then this sort of gray wall that you're seeing is just indicating the extents of where the landscaped area would be. That's all shifted to the west now to avoid the steepest part of the slope. So this is now going to be relatively flat. And that would be the kind of backyard to the hub, as it were. And then this next one here zooms in a little bit further to the same area, just to give you a sense of the relationship between that second floor where you'd have these little walkout balconies. And then the patio below, as well as this canopy connecting over to the pool building. We've also shown for the Juliet balconies, we haven't sort of finalized materials or exact design, but as I said, we're just running some sun studies. This is kind of mid-afternoon that you're seeing here, so that we're able to keep the sun sort of off the windows until quite late in the afternoon when the sun is really coming in directly from the west, at which point someone would have to probably draw the shades. But until about 5:30 p.m. with strategic placement of the screens, which we're showing some perforated metal screens here, and then these metal panels, you're able to keep that sun off quite effectively. So that's really the strategy with the design here, is to make those a comfortable shaded space for as much of the time as possible. And then this is the last one here, which just gives you a slightly different angle. So you can kind of see the depth of those walkouts and the size of those, with a little bit of a cover at the top for sun and rain. And as I noted, these, we're showing them as perforated metal, so you can get some light in, particularly in the shoulder seasons in the winter, but that it's helping to block a significant portion of that intense west light in the mid-afternoon. And that is all that we have for you today. So let me know if you'd like me to go back to any particular images or you want to talk about certain features, and I'll open it up for discussion from council.
Thank you, Natalie. And thank you for showing those. Councillor McCann.
Yep, just confirming what I think I'm seeing here, Natalie. So in this view, we have the two doors that come out of the community gathering place. Then there's a narrow window. Now that narrow window, I presume that's raised would be the library. And then there's a door, and that would be near the library coming out, correct?
So this is good question. Actually, I have to admit there's a slight discrepancy here with the plan. So this one would actually be the washrooms, because we obviously don't want a full height window in the washrooms necessarily, unless you were to cross that. So we've shown a higher one because you could actually get some nice daylight into the washrooms at the higher level. And then we did change this in the floor plan that we showed you. So this would be pulled back a bit, and we'd have a single larger window for the library. What you're seeing here, we had the vestibule extending out further than what we've actually shown in the floor plan. So yes, the library would be here, but with one large window, not this sort of smaller vertical.
Okay, all right. Yeah.
Good question.
Okay, other questions? Councillor Lightfoot.
When you showed the front view of the building, I guess my main concern was the visibility of the museum and even the library to a certain extent, but the museum. But then further on, you did show that there was some signage,
Mhm.
I think below the canopy that said the museum. So that's just something that I think we need to be aware of so that it's like easily identified. But on the mechanical addition on the front of the building, on the drawing or on the other view, can you show me the other view from front on? So that doesn't seem to have a door on the mechanical side on that view, but on your drawing it does. And I guess I think not having the door into the main electrical room in the main plaza area would be my preference, just so that you could put a bench or some display or something there and not have to accommodate access on that north side. I'm not sure if it's doable, but I
Yes,
think it would be more useful if it wasn't on that north side.
yeah, that's a great comment, Councillor Lightfoot. Thank you. And we actually changed this very last minute because we had the door here, and I completely agree it didn't look great, and we weren't very happy about having it right off the plaza. And then at the last minute, Colin from our team looked at it and figured out there is a way he can reorient the planning for that space to avoid having the door on either the Fraser Street side or the plaza side. So then we would only have access doors on the south side and on the side that looks right at the hub building that's more tucked away. So we will adjust that in the planning, and that was the intent, certainly, was to keep the doors off of those higher visibility areas. We just didn't have a chance to implement it yet. But
Great.
comment, and we're thinking the same thing you are here.
Thank you. Okay, I have a comment and a quick question, but my comment is when I first saw the plans and I saw the service building and I thought the end of that building, I thought, wow, that would just a great place to have the sign, you know, welcome to the hub or whatever. So I'm really pleased to see that what you've done there. And, you know, that could even be a place where, you know, museum, library, whatever, right? It's so visible from the street right there. And then just a quick question about the canopy. So how high is the canopy? What's the height of it?
The lowest portion of the canopy is close to 15 feet right now, if I recall correctly. And then the very top, what was it?
That's okay. I was more thinking about how low it is.
Yeah.
So that's good. Okay.
Yeah, it's about 15 feet. We haven't sort of decided exactly where we wanted that line to be yet. I had originally drawn in a stage to see where the top of their head would fall relative to a stage. But if you have particular requests on that, certainly let us know, because that's not finalized yet.
Right. No, that's good. It was just hard to visualize. Other questions, other comments? What are your thoughts, Councillor Michelle? How are you feeling about this?
I'm happy with this layout now. I think it looks good.
Yeah. Thank you. Anything else?
I like the fact that we can actually see the drawings more like what it'll actually look like. That really helps to get a better sense of what we talked about and how that would look. I like the way the Juliet balconies, I was trying to picture them, and it's nice to see how you've looked at incorporating that. I like the back west side of the building, because that was really hard for me to imagine exactly what that might look like. And just to see, because before it seemed like it's just gonna be a real boring side, a real boring part of the building, but that just having that little bit of a shelter there, I think adds a lot to that side of the building and kind of extends the potential for it for future use. So I'm pretty happy. And the north end with the windows, you got there Okay, so there's that big X cross. What is that?
That's actually to do with where there's some structure. So we can't
Yeah.
just have, I mean, these are already quite large windows, so we wouldn't
Yeah,
necessarily want to run them all the way up. Like you'd have like an 18-foot tall window, which is pretty huge. But we do
Yeah.
have some cross structure there. So that's why we've strategically kind of blocked that off because of where there's big steel columns and beams running.
yeah. Play around with that so it looks a little better. Because the high school, or when they put the window at the end of the hallway at the high school, like it was a really nice feature. It brought in light, and then it was this really challenging thing for the janitor to deal with because children love windows and they'll put their face on it and their fingers on it. And so if it's touchable or accessible, then there's that whole, whole concept to deal with. Like, hey, yeah, let's put the light in, but let's make it easy to clean too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good. I'm intrigued to see how that'll evolve.
Mhm.
Okay, are there any other comments, questions, thoughts from council? Councillor Lightfoot.
I just want to thank the architects for working with us to get this within our budget. And I assume that, you know, the ideal client would have lots of money and you could display your expertise and vision in a more extravagant way. But given our circumstances, I think this is a really good design, and I want to thank you for listening to our financial concerns and helping us be reasonable in this project.
Yeah.
You're most
So-
welcome.
So we do have a motion to put forward to approve this layout, this general layout as presented. So Councillor Lightfoot will put that forward, seconded by Councillor Michelle.
Yeah.
And I will call the question. All those in favor? Carried. That's great. So now we look forward to the next step. But we have no other, maybe I could ask what the next step is.
So the next step now is that now that O4 have got, you know, our kind of agreement that this is a reasonable direction and reflects what we were looking for, they'll now go back and work themselves and with their consulting team to further develop this back to kind of that level that we had presented before, right? So they'll be working to have it developed to that level, and we will be working with the cost consultant to budget that out at the same time and see where we land in terms of the savings. I do believe from conversations I've had with O4, they're fairly confident we're well on the way to the cost savings that we needed to make, and we're pretty confident we're going to make it with this design and some of those other material changes that we talked about. So
Perfect.
we'll be bringing it back. And I think, Natalie, we thought like it's probably what, a month and a half?
Yeah, it just depends on the schedule of the other consultants. We've
Yeah.
got a team of about 7 different disciplines, but yeah, I would imagine kind of 4 to 6 weeks.
That we would then bring back
Yeah.
kind of the completed package for approval, and then.
And then the next step.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. All right, so that does bring us to the end of the meeting then, and we will, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Councillor McCann, seconded by Councillor. Okay, thank you everyone for attending.
Thanks very much, everyone.
To corporate officers, Doroshenko.
Thank you, Your Worship. So that concludes the public meeting for council on July 10th, and we wish everyone a wonderful day.
Thanks so much. Take care, everyone.
Natalie.
Thank you.
I know.
So I can't get it back.